Hello, friends of YouTube. I just wanted to give you guys some updates on some projects that I'm doing. Some parts came in today. FedEx man dropped off some stuff while I was napping on the couch. I didn't even hear him show up. So if he's a burglar, he could have got me. But here we go. So these are my top hats. I don't know if you guys seen these before. It's a drop top hat, and depending on which coilover you have, you will not get full adjustment because the bearings on some of them are really big and they like go tunk, 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 hit the inside of this edge. Some of them have smaller bearings, and that's why I originally designed it for was for the smaller teardrop shaped bearing, and that gives you a lot more range of adjustment in here. But really, be honest with you, a lot of guys use these adjustments on coilovers in a way that actually does not improve handling. They do it to add camber, but in doing so, they totally change their angle of inclination, their kingpin angle, whatever you want to call it, and end up creating a lot of other problems in the way the car handles. So the cat just knocked the box off because that's what cats do. End up creating a lot of problems with their handling, don't realize that they're doing. So I don't recommend you using these in the normal sense where guys turn them in and throw a bunch of camber in it. I actually recommend the other direction. You go out with it to increase the inclination angle, or make it less angled. And I'm going to do a YouTube thing on that eventually. But what I wait for is McMaster Car. They are the greatest ever. I don't know if you ever use them for stuff. They have all kinds of good things. Ship me my little studs, these press-in studs here. So they just have this little knurling on the bottom, but it is sufficient to hold that thing in there really tight. I pressed this one in already with my arbor press, and that's really good. So these showed up, so I'm really happy. I'm excited. I'm gonna get to try these in my car. That's not sufficient to hold them in. See the distance. So I'm gonna try these in my car, and I'm excited for that. Not only does it provide a little bit of drop at the top of the coil, which is good for maintaining travel in your shock. A lot of guys lower their cars and their shock or strut has only so many inches of travel, and they lower it and they've reduced the travel by a bunch. This helps you maintain travel. Now obviously it won't travel any further than the tire hitting the wheel well or whatever, but it's still helpful. Now, what's really cool about these is they look freaking amazing in the car. I don't know if you've seen coilovers. They have the flat plates, and then there's the hole in the strut tower, and then you just like have this curved steel that goes down, and then there's a plate down below it. They look really cheap. When these are in place, this height is almost the exact same height. It's just slightly proud of the body, that roll for the in the strut tower. And so the body stops like right here, this lip, and this just like caps it, and it looks fucking mint. It looks so good. I'm gonna post pictures of that later on to show you guys how good it looks. It looks really damn good. I'm really happy with it. Okay, so that's that one. The other one is my hub. I don't know if you guys have seen, the knuckle. So I got a couple wheel bearings here. I've been using my old crusty bearings out of my 06 STI, swapped in my RS for measurements, but they're crusty and old, and they're still installed in the hub, and so I was trying to take measurements on them while they were still installed in the knuckle and all that. So I got two new ones here, which I'll probably put in my car anyways because they got a lot of miles on them, and they're not too friendly with track miles. I haven't opened this box yet. I don't know how much way it goes. There it is. So SKF and NTN are really good bearing manufacturers, and so I wanted to get theirs, and I wanted to look at them and compare them because this is BCA by NTN. Let me see that. But NTN makes really good stuff. I don't know if BCA does, or BCA is a cheap, shitty company that NTN bought. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But I know SKF is good. They make great stuff too. So I wanted to get one of each so I could, one, compare them, make sure that the diameters are the same, make sure that the wheels, the bearings are the same thickness and all of that. That looks actually beefier than this one. But my biggest thing was I want to know if this outside shape was the same, if there was, a few thou between them or what, because my hub, or my knuckle, I'm sorry, that these sit into, I make sure it has enough clearance for the various brands. And so I bought these two, so I'm going to compare them. Boy, that one's pretty heavy. What do they weigh? This one feels lighter. But that's just my dumb hands, so who knows. They look really close. I'm actually curious what this bearing shielding says on it. If it says anything. No, nothing. Usually that shield will say, you know, bearing manufacturer or whatever on it. This doesn't either, and it's the exact same color. Interesting. What is different is this hub is bluer. See, and this one's shiny silver, this one's bluer. Which could imply that these splines have had a more aggressive heat treating process, and these might not have had any heat treating or hardening process. I don't know what's up behind this, but that kind of bluing like that usually implies that they've been hardened via this looks like induction hardening. So it looks like they've been induction hardened. So they would make the spline section of the hub with nothing rubber or plastic attached to it, and when they make it, then they heat it up via induction, and the whole thing glows red, and they would cool it at a certain rate or in a certain material, be some kind of oil or a high carbon based fluid or whatever, to change the, it looks similar though, to change the hardness of the metal there. So that would be beneficial if that is what this is showing me, that this one is heat treated, this one is not, unless they go through and like polish this up afterwards, but I'm not betting that they do. But yeah, it's got some more bluing on it, so this may be a harder surface. Could be interesting to verify. I wish I could say I could find them, but they have files. I don't know if you've seen, there's files, little tiny files, and they have different cuts, different teeth patterns on them, and if the material cuts by this file, then it's at least, you know, this soft or hardness, and then you go through the files, and then they'll cut hard and harder or soft and soft, which way you go, and then you'll get an idea within a few points of what the hardness of the material is. So I could take this to my machinist. I know he has the files. I know he knows where they are. I don't know where mine are. And use his and see if these two are different hardnesses. That would be interesting. Not important for the knuckle, but just good to know for bearings, because I know people still need bearings, and I'm going to offer them with and without bearings, because people are going to want them in the knuckles. They may not want to transfer it over. They may have too many track racing miles on them, and they may want a new bearing. I'd like to find out which one was the stronger, harder spline, so that I know that they're less likely to strip splines out on the axles on launches and that kind of stuff. So definitely would like to get that data and figure that out. So, and then I have tie rods for the RS. You may have seen that video already where I showed, I think they're Hyundai Elantra tie rods. I forget, I gotta double check now. For the swap, for the steering rack swap. But that's where I sit right now. I am finishing dimensions. Once I get these bearings into my office, I'll measure them up, get the final dimensions on those, and get those in the knuckle, and that will be ready for prototyping, because I have everything done for it, including some features that I have not shown on Instagram. Actually, quite a few features I have not shown on Instagram. Some of them because I only added them last night, and some I added a few days ago, but I didn't want to give away all the good juju right away. So look out for the knuckle. It's really cool, and it has things that nobody else is offering, and I think it's got some really cool, ingenious ideas in it. Obviously, I got to prototype them, test them, and see if they work. Now, those are the front ones. I'm working on something for the rear after I finish the front. The rear definitely needs it. It's actually worse than the front on Subarus. So, yeah, you can tell that. I would say you can tell that the rear is worse than the front, because when the Subarus are on the track a lot, you'll see them carrying a rear tire, and that carrying of the rear tire is evidence of either just an extremely screwed up geometry or suspension based on like spring rates and that kind of stuff, and or very, very different roll centers, front and rear. And when your front and rear roll centers are off, the cars behave odd, and that carrying a tire like they do is evidence that the roll center on the front versus the rear is very different. And so we definitely want to get the cars to behave more balanced. And carrying a back tire up in the air is not balanced behavior. So the cars tend to do this and then rock like that through turns where they carry rear tires up. And you can picture that if this is unloaded, the left is unloaded and the front right is overloaded. So you're not sharing the weight between the side left and right. And so the roll centers are off and it's kicking the back up. So we don't want that. We want the backs to be nice and flat with the fronts, utilize all the grip on the other side of the car that we can. And if we can retain some grip on the inside edge, that's great too. And carrying a tire obviously has zero grip at all. So rear knuckles to follow. The fronts are definitely more complex. And with the ability to add an upper control arm and get rid of the strut up top, I think it's super cool. The knuckles will work for both. We'll be able to use a strut and an upper control arm, so you can use both. And depending on which coilover you have, you may still be able to retain your coilover. Just gonna change the bottom foot out. So I'm making them with the Fortunes in mind, and you'll be able to use your Fortune 500s or whatever on the car with a new knuckle. Before you just change out the lower foot and you get the feet for not a whole lot of money. But I'm still trying to figure out a way of using an adapter to make it so you don't have to change out the foot. But the size of the big strut bottom foot, cat butt, is definitely going to be a factor with making it fit in the control arm. So anyways, guys, and maybe even gals, that is the update. Knuckle, rack, strut tops, and that's it. Oh, and dry sump. Dry sump is somewhat on hold because the car I was supposed to use it on has not been built yet, but it is now finally in the works. The car is being built now, so we should be able to get this dry sump testing done here really soon too, so I'm excited for that. Anyways, guys, thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a good day. And what is it? It's Wednesday. Hope you have a good weekend to make new videos between now and then. See ya.